Returning to Gustav Klimt's The Kiss, this is very clearly a passionate kiss. It's not a friendship kiss. It's not a brother kissing his sister. We have instead two figures that clearly love each other, merge together and become one. They kind of melt, they blend, they bend, they dissolve in a great decorative surface filled with gold and everything that sparkles. There are also a series of flat patterns on this, in particular on the side that it belongs to the woman. If you look here, you're going to see spiraling shapes. You should be thinking Art Nouveau. The curving forms, the organic qualities that are a part of it, that also appears in the flower bed that they sink into. But if you go along the edge of these figures, that too is a product of Art Nouveau. In contrast to the curving forms, the spirals of the lady, there are a series of rectangles that are upright on the male figure. So he's using geometric shapes and forms, but he's counterbalancing them by gender, but they do merge together. So we have some spirals over here, for example, on the male side, becoming one, literally, as they're sinking down into the flowers, kind of evoking a world of dream, a world of fantasy, and also at the same time, pretty clearly a world of eroticism as well. We have then the Art Nouveau portion of it, the symbolism portion of it. I do think can be found in the idea of the two becoming one, total and complete union that comes from total and complete love. This on the left is Mr. Klimt himself with his kitty cat, just so you can get a look at him. And on our right is figure 412 in our textbook, and it is a portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer. This was painted in 1907, and it's become noteworthy for a number of reasons. One is it's a beautiful portrait. It consists of oil plus silver and gold on the canvas, and I think it looks it. It glitters, it's glistening, and it is overwhelming in its organic detail and curving outlines that does link this portrait to the style of Art Nouveau, which was one of the factors that fed into Mr. Klimt's style. This particular portrait also, though, became relatively famous in 2006 when it sold for a rather astonishing high figure of 135 million. That is a high price to pay for a portrait. Usually, people do not go that high when they are acquiring artworks, at least in the realm of portraits. It was purchased by a man whose name was Lauder. You might be familiar, Estee Lauder, the cosmetic company. So apparently he had the money to acquire this. The history of the painting, I think, also though added to the incentive to purchase it. Adele was the wife of a very rich Jewish sugar industrialist. Her will said that her husband should donate her Klimt paintings to the Austrian gallery upon her death. She dies in 1925. The husband isn't too eager to do that right away, so the paintings remain in his possession for a while. Unfortunately, the family is Jewish. The Nazis take over. This is Austria. So they take possession and they confiscate all of the artworks. The husband is going to flee out of Germany into neutral territory. He is going to die in 1945, but before he dies, he creates another will. And this will says that the paintings go to any descendants who survive. There was a big court battle, and it was determined that this particular painting would go to a 90-year-old niece of Adele's who ended up getting 5 Klimt paintings, worth, as you can clearly see, millions. The question that was raised by this surrounds the idea of restitution of artworks, and in particular the ones that the Nazis looted during World War II. But it also raised the issue of what about Adele's original intention to have this painting go to a national gallery in Austria, which seemed to be her wish. However, I am guessing that her husband changed his mind about that because of the way in which the Austrians, oh, I'm going to say, gave in to the presence of the Nazis and became, from his perspective, complicit with the Nazi takeover. Uh, Regardless of the reasons, the law courts have decided that this would, in fact, go to the descendants, and as a result of that, it has ended up in the United States. It's in New York City, and one of the galleries there where you can actually have a chance to see it. It is a stunning picture, and I would also like to take just a moment to let you know that it is actually a pretty darn good portrait even though it looks rather abstract, flat, decorative, and overwhelming in terms of its intensity of richness. So, how can I say that? Well, let's look at a detail and a photo of Adele. This is a detail of the face of Adele. It is highly abstracted, but boy, I'm going to say it is right on in terms of capturing the overall appearance of this rather grand lady who clearly was a lady of wealth and was well suited as a patron for Gustav Klimt. One of the important exponents of Art Nouveau in the United States is Louis Comfort Tiffany, who opened a studio in New York City in the 19th century. That family run business still survives today, the Tiffany Studios. He has become very well known for the works that he created in glass. These are objects usually used for interior decoration and design. And in our textbook, we have figure 414, which is one of Tiffany's lamps. I have three examples for you to look at. They're all characteristic of Art Nouveau. You can see that the lamp glass itself drips down as if it is hanging flowers. The one that's on the right, I think, is lilacs. The one that's in the middle, I think, is lilies hanging down. All of these are lush, organic, and very, very rich. The wires are encased in the stem, and literally it is in this case intended to be a stem. And as we get down to the base, we see work that suggests roots or branching into the ground, or in this case, over here, we actually see the fibrous vein work that you would find inside leaves. These are very successful adaptations of Art Nouveau to utilitarian objects that can be used but also are very, very beautiful. The problem again arises that although in theory Art Nouveau was supposed to be handcrafted material that would help the masses, that you and I could have an example like this coming out of the Tiffany studios, took so much time and man hours to produce that it was well above the income level of an average person. Tiffany's works, in fact, still remain much appreciated on the art market today. This is a photograph on the right of Antonio Gaudi, who brought Art Nouveau to architecture in a very amazing and creative way. He manages to mingle Art Nouveau with symbolism and revivalism in the amazing construction of Sagrada Familia, which we're going to look at in a moment. But before we do that, there's also a playful element of Gaudi's works. And I think you can see that in our kind of dragon creature located on the left, which is an object in ceramic ware that Gaudi produced for one of the parks in Barcelona, Spain. The sad news is if you want to actually see Gaudi's creations, you have to go to Barcelona because that's where they exist today. That's where the architect lived and worked. He was an intensely imaginative, unorthodox, but also devoutly religious individual. And I think that shows up best in his crowning achievement, which is Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. These are details of his church and a distant shot located on the left. Those towers, by the way, rise to 350 feet up in the air. So we're talking about a pretty massive and impressive structure. The figure number in our book is 415. This was begun in the 19th century in the 1880s, and the work on this church continues today, which of course means really long after the death of Gaudi. So it's become an ongoing, in a way, tribute to the creative mind of Mr. Gaudi. It is still in progress, and it's really tough to actually put a style name on this, I'm going to say monster project, which is still being completed as we speak. The church is, I'm going to say, sort of Gothic, and I think you can pick that up with the pointed arches that create the framework, the entrance portal essentially for the structure. And I have a detail of that located over here on the right. But that would put it into revival. So, in other words, going back and reviving the style of the Gothic, which is normally associated with the 13th century. So, we have a tad of Gothic revivalism. That is an important element of this, and that will show up in the stained glass on the interior, as well as if you look over here at the rose windows on the exterior. But beyond that, it's pretty clearly Art Nouveau also. It has very fluid outlines. It seems to be dripping and growing. It's organic. There are actually, as you can see down here, I think, actually, this is a Christmas tree, actually organic forms, trees, plants, animals that decorate this thing, making it an amazing, almost like a forest-like creation. When I describe this, and this is a church that was constructed in stone, I can talk about it as oozing. It looks like it's oozing. And that isn't a word I would use for any other piece of architecture. But Gaudi has made it look like it's growing, it's dripping, it's changing, like it's filled with a sense of flow and of motion that we might associate with Art Nouveau. This is another view and a detail located on our right. This thing is covered with details, including critters like the one that we see over here. It's kind of a salamander-like serpenty creature that curves and coils around the exterior of Sagrada Familia. As you look at the towers also, you can see that they're kind of curving. And again, you can see the oozing organic surface that adheres to the exterior of this building. Sagrada Familia also for Gaudi represented a symbolic idea, so I think I can associate this with symbolism as well. For Gaudi, who was intensely religious, he believed that a straight line belonged to the world of humans. It was something that a machine can produce. However, the curving line belonged to God. It was something divine. So Gaudi sought influences in his work in natural materials, in seashells and pebbles you might find on the seashore, or worn driftwood, or in the wing of a bird. So you're going to find a lot of shapes in the structure, as well as creatures crawling all over the surface of it that are drawn from the natural world, which is God's world, not the machine, but the realm of the divine. So this church, amazingly, then is revival, it's Art Nouveau, and it's symbolism all at once. This is a clear detail of the Gothic portion, the revival portion. If you go over here to this portion of Sagrada Familia, you're going to see the pointed arch that is a part of traditional Gothic architecture. And you can also see a rose window. I have a detail for us located right here. It's based upon the petals of a flower and references the rose, which is a symbol of love, and that is associated in particular with Mary, but also certainly with Jesus in Gothic architecture. On the inside, looking up, the construction of this church is just absolutely amazing. It towers over our head. It has elements that are very Gothic, but on the other hand, I have never in my life seen a column that supports a Gothic ceiling that spreads apart as if it consists of the branches of a tree. So we really have the sense on the interior of this church. This is looking up at the roof, at the dome up above us, that we're inside a kind of forest or inside an organic creation. It is also, I have to say, an organic creation that really does come out of the world of fantasy. This is pure Gaudi. No one else on the planet has ever done anything like this. If you have a chance, go to see this building. There is an element of playfulness that's a part of Gaudi as well, and that would be true for this. This is as we leave the building, you can see there's a column on the exterior, and darn it, if it isn't a little turtle that's helping to hold that up. And this gives you a little bit of a scale shot. That's me standing next to that column with that turtle. But this is total Gaudi in terms of the playfulness. This very, very top of the church also incorporates mosaic decoration, and I would like to draw your attention to the history in Spain of Islam. Islam is very famous for creations in mosaics and in tile, and that is yet another source of inspiration, and I think for the color also that Gaudi is pulling into his works.